Hello and a very warm welcome to this exciting discussion on UK-Vietnam trade and investment opportunities, co-hosted by the UK-ASEAN Business Council, together with Vietnam's Ministry of Industry and Trade and the Embassy of Vietnam to the United Kingdom. Today we are honored to have His Excellency Mr. Hoang Quoc Vung, Vice Minister of Industry and Trade, to give the keynote address and a stellar panel, including Gareth Ward, UK Ambassador to Vietnam, Mr. Luong Hoang Thai, a Director General at the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and Warwick Klein, Chairman and CEO of KPMG Vietnam, to explore how the UK and Vietnam's trading relationship can go from strength to strength. To lead today's discussion, we are delighted to have Baroness Neville Rolfe, Chair of the UK-ASEAN Business Advisory Council, to chair the session, as well as Ambassador Tran Ngoc An, Vietnam Ambassador to the UK, to give some welcome remarks. I'm Alan Lai with the UK ABC based in Brunei and have a couple of notes to highlight before we begin. Firstly, we would love to hear your thoughts and questions and invite you to post your comments in the question box at the bottom of your screen, and our chair will present them to the panel. Your microphones and cameras have been switched off. And secondly, if you are on Twitter, do tag us at UK-ASEAN and use the hashtag UK-ASEAN. Baroness Neville Rolfe has had 3 careers in politics, in business, and in the civil service. A former UK business minister and board director for Tesco, Baroness Neville Rolfe is now an active peer in the House of Lords and has a real passion for Southeast Asia. Baroness Neville Rolfe, over to you in London.
Alan, thank you. And good evening to all those in Vietnam, and good morning to those here in Britain. I'd like to make I'm delighted that we're furthering the UK-Vietnam relationship today. I think it's been going from strength to strength in the last year. And I have a very special welcome for Vice Minister Vong of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and his colleague and Ambassador An, who's been a good friend to us here in London. Thank you both for partnering us today. We chose this theme because an understanding of what the Vietnamese economy looks like post-COVID, what changes and what drivers you see in the Vietnam economy, is vital to Vietnam and vital to the region. There's also been a very important recent diplomatic development with the visit last week of the UK's Foreign Secretary, Dominic, Raab, and DTI Minister for Trade Policy, Greg Hands. And I think that today's session will give us a real insight into the UK-Vietnam trading relationship, which is so much more important now the UK has left the EU. I should also mention that on the call is our new CEO, Ian Gibbons, MBE, who's taken over from our long-serving CEO, Ross Hunter. He comes from a Foreign Office posting, a senior Foreign Office posting in Vietnam. So I think that will further warm the relationship. I'd like to start by introducing and inviting Ambassador An to give his welcome remarks. Ambassador An has been in London since 2017, and he's been instrumental during that period in strengthening UK-Vietnam relations. We're very sorry that his tenure is coming to an end, but we are delighted to have him here today. He has led the ASEAN group in London with great aplomb. He's been very supportive of our programs, and under his tenure, we've hosted Vietnam's Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, and twice hosted you, Vice Minister Vong. And so good to have you again today. In January, he spoke at our ASEAN 2020 event and outlined Vietnam's priorities as chair of ASEAN. Ambassador ASEAN, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Baroness Neville, Chair of the UK-ASEAN Business Council. First of all, I would like to thank the Chair very much for your kind word about my tenure here in UK. Of course, I will try as Ambassador of Vietnam to UK, so I have the obligation to contribute to the development of relations between our 2 countries. And so let me say a few words. Baroness Neville, Chair of UK-ASEAN Business Council, His Excellency Mr. Hoàng Quốc Vương, Vice Minister of Industry and Trade of Vietnam, dear colleagues, distinguished participants. First of all, I would like to express our sincere thanks to the UK-ABC for the time and effort in collaborating with the MOTI of Vietnam and the embassy in London to organize the first virtual meeting on trade and relations between Vietnam and UK. This virtual meeting is held at a very important moment in the Vietnam-UK relations as the two countries celebrate the 10th anniversary of strategic partnership. Despite the ongoing situation of COVID-19 pandemic, the friendship and cooperation between Vietnam and UK have continued to be broadened and deepened in various fields. Most recently, on October 1st, the first dialogue between the Communist Party of Vietnam and the All-Party Parliamentary Group, APPG of UK, was held via video conferencing with the theme of cooperation in green economic and development post-COVID-19, during which participants exchanged opinions and on the situation and prospect for cooperation in economic, trade-related issue and in green energy in particular, as well as measures to boost bilateral collaboration in this field. And on September 30th, the UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab visited Vietnam, and the two sides issued a joint declaration on Vietnam-UK strategic partnership, forging ahead for another 10 years. The two sides emphasized their determinations and commitment for even higher level of bilateral strategic partnership between the two countries. UK and Vietnam also emphasized the need for concerted efforts and close cooperation to address regional and global issues such as healthcare and climate change to ensure peace, security, and sustainable development. And at the same time, on September 30th, UK Minister of State for Trade Policy Greg Hans with the UK Businesses Group also paid a visit to Vietnam to seriously explore opportunities to invest billions of dollars into the renewable energy sectors of Vietnam. This, together with other potential investment from the UK, promised to make the UK one of the top investors in Vietnam in near future. And in terms of trade, which is one of the areas of particular interest and priorities in our bilateral relations. As you may know, the European-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement came into effect for Vietnam and EU from the 1st of August 2020, which eliminates almost 99% of custom duties between EU and Vietnam over a phased period of 7 years, bring benefits to both Vietnam and UK businesses. The UK companies will benefit from the agreement until the 31st December 2020. And with the strong prospect that our bilateral FTA will be signed and enter into force before the end of this year, and given the complementarities of the two countries, the two economies, opportunities for bilateral trade and investment are greater than ever before. I am strongly confident that the meeting today, with the participations of guest speakers and panelists who have deep knowledge and affection for building up Vietnam and UK friendship and multifaceted cooperation, the meeting will provide further opportunities to understand and to have more information on Vietnam economic development and the opportunities for trade and investment between the two countries. So I wish you all good health and good luck. Have a very successful meeting today. I thank you.
Ambassador Anne, thank you. And thank you for being so warm and so crisp. As I say, we will miss you a lot and look forward to hearing where you have moved on to and indeed keeping in touch. But I now have a particular delight in welcoming back to a UK-ABC event, Vice Minister Wong. Some will recall that Vice Minister Yong is an engineer by training. He has enormous depth of experience in the energy sector. Both are vital, of course, both to Vietnamese and ASEAN infrastructure plans. And of course, green energy is a big theme today. Vice Minister, may I now invite you to deliver your keynote address. Unmute. Vice Minister, we need to unmute.
Could you hear me?
We can, thank you, marvelous.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Mr. Gareth Wood, British Ambassador to Vietnam, Mr. Trần Ngọc An, Vietnam Ambassador to the UK, and dear Madame Baroness Neville Raab, Chair of the UK-ASEAN Business Council, ladies and gentlemen. In recent years, positive progress and remarkable achievement have been recorded in Vietnam economic developments. The economy gross domestic product in 2019 was at record high growth of 7.02%, joining the world's top group of high economic growth. This is the second consecutive year the Vietnam economic growth has reached over 7% since 2011. Having joined the middle income group since 2008 with average income per capita of more than $1,000 in 2019, the country's GDP reached almost $300 million and GDP per capita was almost $3,000. Total trade in goods turnover in 2019 exceeded $500 million with record high trade surplus of more than $11 billion in 4 consecutive years. In terms of international economic integration, Vietnam has trade exchange with more than 200 countries and territories, becoming a responsible member of international organizations and institutions. Apart from, at the moment, 13 bilateral and multilateral agreement has been concluded for the implementation with the ASEAN and other important partners such as Eurasian Economic Unions, EU, Korea, China, Japan, India, Australia, New Zealand, and 4 others under negotiations, including Vietnam UK FTA, opening opportunities for preferential access to potential markets. In such a way, doing business with Vietnam is not only a market of more than 90 million people, but also a much enlarging regional market. Apart from the great achievement again in socio-economic development in recent years, investment and business environment in Vietnam has been increasingly improved toward transparent and facilitating for doing long-term and stable business by all economic players, domestic and foreign, following the principle of equality, non-discrimination, and mutual benefit. It is determination of the government of Vietnam to accelerate administrative reform to adapt requirements of market mechanism and economic integration, creating a reliable and attractive investment environment for business communities. In 2019, Vietnam was ranked by the World Bank at 70th out of 119 in business environment, a considerably improved position in comparison with the 82nd as ranked in 2017. Thanks to improved investment in business environment, Vietnam has been considered as an attractive destination for foreign business. According to the United Nations Global Innovation Index, the year 2020 marks the second consecutive year that Vietnam maintained its 42nd in global innovation ranking and considered as one of the 50 economies that made significant improvement for business building. In the context of shifting FDI flow, maintaining high growth of capital inflow is considered as an encouraging achievement, affirming countries' attractiveness in global capital market. By the end of 2019, total registered capital and equity buying by foreign investors in Vietnam reached almost $40 billion, up by more than 7% as compared to the same period in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the Vietnam-UK economic relations, with the effort of the two sides, business communities' remarkable achievements have been made in bilateral economic and trade relations in recent years. In 2020 marks the 47th anniversary of establishment of the diplomatic relation between UK and Vietnam. We witnessed great achievement gained by two countries in the course of nation construction and strengthening bilateral relations. By the end of August 2020, the UK has 400 valid investment projects in Vietnam with a total registered capital of more than $3.6 billion, ranking 16 among 130 countries and territories having investment in Vietnam. The size of British investment in Vietnam has not properly reflected the potential of the UK, one of the top largest outward investment countries in the world, and also a country attracting the largest inward investment. Bilateral trade exchange in 2017 reached more than $6 billion, up by 3.5 times in 10 years. In 2019, total two-way trade value is more than $6.6 billion. The basic strength and also the attractiveness of the business environment in Vietnam for foreign businesses in general and British companies can be generalized in the following main features. First of all, it is the political stability in Vietnam, a crucial factor in ensuring business and investment activities of enterprises, including foreign ones. Second, the legal system of Vietnam is increasingly complete and consistent with international practice. And third, the infrastructure system is increasingly improved. And finally, the friendly bilateral relationship and attention of the leaders of the two countries for comprehensive cooperation has been increasingly developed. Ladies and gentlemen, the UK is a great power nation taking the lead in international relations with long-lasting traditional bilateral friendship. Vietnam highly appreciates and considers strengthening multifaceted partnership with UK as a priority in Vietnam foreign policy. Vietnam is considered as an attractive market to bridge market access for foreign investors to penetrate into a wide ASEAN market of more than 670 million people and more than $9 trillion in GDP. Stable growth has been maintained for many years in terms of macroeconomic development of Vietnam, with annual growth of 6 to 8% in GDP and 12% per year in import-export value. Its investment in business environment has been improved, ranking 9 in the terms of investment attraction. Foreign investment inflow into Vietnam has grown steadily. Investment and business environment and in national competitiveness have been made many progress, ranking 77 out of 140 countries. International economic integration has been promoted in many aspects. On the basis of favorable conditions and potential for the development, the two sides will make all effort to strengthen cooperation for the common interests in the field of both sides' strength, promoting UK investment into Vietnamese industries with advantages and priority to attract investment in following direction. First one, attracting foreign investment in high-tech advanced environment-friendly technologies, clean energy, renewable energy, medical equipment manufacturing, healthcare services, education and training services, tourism, financial services, logistics, and other services. High-tech agro production, infrastructure development, taking the advantage of the industrial revolution, continuously attracting foreign investment into fields where Vietnam still has advantages such as textile, footwear, but focusing on stages that create high added value associated with smart production and automation. The second, increasing the attraction of foreign investors, foreign invested enterprises, especially transnational enterprises, linking with domestic enterprises to establish and develop industry clusters in each value chain based on their advantage, condition, development, level, and planning for each locality in the regional linkage, ensuring overall economic, social, and environmental efficiency. And finally, ensuring the harmony between export growth and the development of value-added products and services, the use of domestic raw materials, the development of supporting industries and domestic human resources training. Vietnam has been building the economic trade relation to become the foundation for the bilateral strategic partnership, specifically for the government agencies in order to attract the foreign investment and to promote the trade with other countries. We should focus on the following: to promote the improvement of the investment and business environment, create an open and favorable legal corridors for business, prepare for the establishment of the legal framework on bilateral investment and trade facilitation, ready for all Brexit scenarios to avoid disruption for business doing, to promote policy dialogue, strengthen and improve efficiency and heighten the role of UK-Vietnam Joint Committee, making it as an effective dialogue mechanism to promote bilateral trade and investment facilitation, to promote trade promotion, networking, events, workshops, seminars, and dialogue for information exchange between local authorities and entrepreneurs, developing financial support policies for trade promotion programs, taking the leading role of the Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Trade, investment promotion centers, to build investment supporting scheme for advanced technology application to improve product competitiveness, focusing on quality and production costs, lowering, investing in brand promotion in appropriate manner, to promote effective cooperation projects in key industrial fields where the UK has strength, such as education, energy, especially renewable energy, green energy, financial technology, to develop supporting mechanisms and policies using financial resources from UK Fund, like the Prosperity Fund and Newton Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam government welcomes and creates favorable conditions for doing business in Vietnam. In that spirit, both countries have been striving to set up a legal framework for bilateral trade facilitation, satisfying requirements in new context, avoiding disruption in bilateral trade exchange after the UK left the European Union, as well as establishing an effective channel for business dialogue, including a joint committee on trade and economic cooperation. Through this conference, I do hope that British business operating in Vietnam or looking for investment and business cooperation opportunities will actively explore market information to exploit their potential, strength, and business opportunities between the two sides, creating new great values, contributing to common development of the countries and people of our countries. Thank you very much for your attention.
Minister Wong, thank you very much indeed for that excellent presentation. I was actually particularly struck by your list of all the different businesses that have grown in Vietnam as part of your expansion, and your focus on getting extra added value, which obviously helps a great deal, and the prospect obviously with the trade with the UK, if we can reach agreement this year, as we all hope. I would like to move on straight away, if we may, in the light of that excellent overview, to our panel. And the Vice Minister kindly agreed to stay for the panel. And we have an excellent panel. Please, can you send in questions to the Q&A so that I can pass those on to our panel? I already have one. But first, perhaps I could introduce the panel and ask them to say a few words. So I'm delighted that joining the Vice Minister are Gareth Ward, British Ambassador to Vietnam since 2018, Director General Tai from the Ministry of Industry and Trade in Vietnam, and finally, Warwick Klein, Chairman and CEO of KPMG in Vietnam and Cambodia. Gareth, as the host of the high-profile VIP visit last week, can you kick us off in terms of how that visit went? We all saw it on social media, and talk about some of the key outcomes. And perhaps you could also tell us the status of the UK-Vietnam FTA, and I suppose how different that will be from the Europe-Vietnam FTA that our members are used to operating under. Gareth, over to you, our ambassador to the UK ambassador.
Let me check one more time. Can you hear us here on the panel?
We can indeed. Thank you for checking. The sound is difficult.
Great, excellent. Well, so it's very good to see you again, Lucy, online, and of course, Minister Vuong here in person, and very good to see Ambassador An in London. Last week, as has been mentioned, we had a very significant visit. It was significant first and foremost because we were celebrating 10 years of the UK-Vietnam Strategic Partnership and refreshing that partnership for the next 10 years. And we had a lot to celebrate. As we've heard, we tripled bilateral trade in the last 10 years. We tripled the number of British tourists coming to Vietnam. Last year, there were over 300,000 British tourists. Of course, this year, due to COVID, that number's going to be much less, but we very much hope to return to that upward trend in the coming years. And we established over 50 university partnerships between British and Vietnamese universities to do research together. We issued over 200 Chevening scholarships to the best and the brightest Vietnamese to study in the UK. We had 3 high-profile visits by Royal Navy ships to Vietnam. So there was a lot to celebrate. about the last 10 years, but more than that, of course, we were focused on the future. And I'll just describe a few of the themes from the visit which show where we are heading. The first theme was health cooperation, and we had a very important series of seminars with the Ministry of Health in Vietnam about vaccine regulation, vaccine preparation, vaccine distribution. And not only have we got some of the best British expertise here in Vietnam through Oxford University Clinical Research Unit, but we've also got some of Britain's best companies investing in and supplying to the healthcare market. So it was very good to hear from AstraZeneca during the visit last week that they are investing into production of drugs in the cardiovascular area in Vietnam. So that's part of their £200 million investment program over the next few years in Vietnam. So pharmaceuticals, healthcare was mentioned by I think Ambassador An and Minister Vung. That's clearly a big opportunity. Another area which we talked about was renewable energy, and as has been mentioned, there are lots of British companies engaged in both the expansion of solar power, rooftop solar, utility scale solar, but biggest and most important of all, the issue which, in my opinion, should become the defining feature of Britain's relationship with Vietnam in the next 10 years is wind power, because the UK is the world leader in wind power and Vietnam has world-leading wind resources here. So that was a main feature of our discussions. Another element was we were very pleased to hold a meeting with all ASEAN foreign ministers whilst the Foreign Secretary was here. As you know, Vietnam's chairing ASEAN, and we have submitted our dialogue partnership application to ASEAN this year. That was an excellent conversation. We have over 100 billion of trade per year with ASEAN, the UK as a whole, and we have over 100 billion of investment in ASEAN. We're one of the top investors. Unfortunately, as was pointed out, only 3 billion of that is in Vietnam, so much lower than in some other countries of ASEAN. So that's something we need to change. And finally, I think to talk about the trade policy dimensions of the visit. Again, it's been mentioned, but worth mentioning again. We really see the opportunity to drive future trade between both countries through the free trade agreement. We are benefiting from the EVFTA at the moment, the EU-Vietnam FTA, which the UK was part of negotiating. But now that we have left the EU and that deal will no longer apply from the end of the year, we're working very hard to finalise some of the remaining issues in that negotiation. The UK had a lot of trade deals through the EU. I think they covered around about 13% of our trade, and we have transitioned most of those deals already. We have transitioned, for instance, some big valuable trade deals with Korea and with Switzerland already. So this is entirely feasible. We've got a good platform. Most of the text, 99.9% of the text of the EVFTA remains valid, and it's a question of getting that small remaining part correct. But we have some negotiations coming up. We have some experts in the room, and like everybody else, I'm confident that we can make that happen in the right time frame to benefit British exporters, but also, of course, to benefit Vietnamese exporters. Because at the moment, as everyone in the room knows, and there are some very good brochures on the tables here in our physical room of various export sectors of Vietnam to the UK. Vietnam's exporting 3 times as much to the UK as we're exporting to Vietnam, because Vietnam's got a lot of good competitive products at the moment. And I'll finish, sorry if I've gone on too long, but just this one last story. The story of the visit by the Foreign Secretary to me. He flew from from Stansted Airport, which is near Cambridge, which is where ARM Technologies is based. ARM creates the code for nearly all good quality mobile phones. The mobile smartphone is the iconic item of this century. And he flew to Korea, where he met businesses including Samsung, and of course Samsung is the biggest producer of mobile phones, smartphones in the world, and then to Vietnam, and Vietnam is the biggest manufacturer of Samsung phones. So British technology, this is the supply chain of the 21st century in action. British coding in Korean high-tech products with Vietnamese high-skilled manufacturing, and then back to the UK. I'm not sure what mobile phone, Baroness Deverolf, what mobile phone you've got in your pocket, but if it's a Samsung, it's probably come from here. So thank you very much.
Gareth, thank you very much indeed for that. And I'm going to actually move straight on, because you've given us great background, to ask Director General Tai to come in. Director General Tai actually couldn't be more expert in multilateral trade policy, if you look at his CV. And he's also spent time in Geneva and in London during his earlier years. And I'd like to ask him, really, if he could, to expand on Vice Minister Vuong comments and what Gareth has had to say about the potential of the UK-Vietnam FTA. What more can we do to grow trade between the UK and Vietnam, and what should be our areas of focus? Do you agree with Gareth, or are there differences? Over to you, Director General.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for having me. And I think I'm very honored to be here at this juncture. As Ambassador mentioned, this is a very important juncture in the UK-Vietnam relationship. We are celebrating 10 years of strategic partnership. And nowhere you see it more obvious than in the area of trade and investment. And we are developing that with the background of the FTA that we already had with the EU, but also was extended to the UK. So for the moment, we are good in that. And in particular, if we see, we do see that it's complementary if we look at the nature of our two economies. So the ambassador, for example, mentioned about the pharmaceutical sector. I think if we can grow that relationship, I think vaccines, but not only vaccines, but as a kind of pharmaceuticals as well. That's good for both sides, because I do believe that even the Vietnamese consumers, they see benefits of having the best medicines coming from the UK. So in the existing FTA that we already had with the EU, there are important commitments there as a basis for us to build that relationship. So if it comes to trade in goods, the agreement has one of the highest standards that we see. So it's comparable to the agreement we have with ASEAN, one of our first FTA. So even with the very sensitive goods like alcoholic beverages or cars, all the tariffs will come down to zero. So close to 100% in terms of trade. In services and investment, we also see good commitments in the agreement. And in government procurement, as I mentioned, we had commitment not only in government agencies, but also in public hospitals, in utilities, in infrastructure and some other areas. And the commitments we had there is among the highest that we had. Actually not among, but it is the highest that we have. And in addition to that, of course, there are far-reaching rules on all the areas. So from intellectual property rights to state-owned enterprises and to other areas, there's strong commitments in the agreement that we can build onto. And the good news is that not only for the transitional period, but we are working very closely with the UK to extend that agreement into the future when next year comes, and with our groundwork being done now, we are very hopeful that we can have an agreement that closely inherits what was already there in the FTA between Vietnam and the EU. And we had a good discussion between Minister Greg Hans and my minister here in Hanoi last week. And we all noted the importance of the agreement, and the two ministers identify very few areas that are still remaining. And we looking forward to the next session. That we hope that the technical level, under the directions that the two ministers have already gave us, can come to close all the remaining issues so that we can be ready to have an agreement based on the FTA between Vietnam and the EU, but of course with a few adjustments reflecting the bilateral relationship, and that will, we hope, come into force next year when to inherit the relationship now between Vietnam and the EU. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Director General. I think we'll move on quickly so we can get some questions in, if we may, to Warwick Klein, who is our business representative in the panel. He's obviously 20 years experience in Vietnam and now heads up KPMG, as I've said. He's obviously one of the greatest experts in tax, leading tax professional, and much regarded by the finance ministry in Vietnam, but also obviously knows about restructuring and corporate transactions. I'm going to ask you, if you might, Warwick, to talk about the business view on Vietnam's trade and opportunities. And if you were able to pick up a couple of the questions that I've had, that would be good. So Martin Barrow, who we'll all know from Jardines, wants to know what more we can do to work together to relaunch travel and tourism. And Mr. Knowles from Limpsfield has been working with local businesses in Vietnam. He's been visiting factories, he's been to PepsiCo and Yamaha. You know, what's the best way? The question is, what is the best way to achieve success? And Warwick, with your 20 years in Vietnam, I'm sure you can help him. So over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Baroness. And I'm very, very pleased to be able to talk to you briefly this afternoon. I'm not going to talk about tax. Thank you for the kind introduction. Everybody be relieved to know. Look, I think Ambassador An used the word affection to describe everybody on this panel and on this call's attitude towards Vietnam, and it's very true. And you know, we all feel very good to be here and to be doing business here, and it's not without good reason. I think to answer the broad question, how does the business world feel about Vietnam now? I would say we're all feeling pretty good. It's always been true that investors have come into Vietnam or engaged with Vietnam through a number of different lenses. Many of us come here through the domestic lens, looking at the domestic story, and Vice Minister Vuong went through many of the successes that Vietnam has had in its macroeconomic story, the fact that we've enjoyed not just the last 7 or 8 years, as he described, of growth, but 25 years of consistent economic growth. And that is you know, a pretty envious track record. Not many countries in the world can claim that. And the truth is that that's a very attractive proposition to companies looking to invest and invest successfully. And many of us see that continuing. And particularly if we think about this year, which has been so problematic for so many places around the world with the COVID crisis, the government have very clearly demonstrated the truism that governments don't have to choose between health and economic outcomes. You can very much achieve success in both. And you know, by putting the health of the population here to the front, the domestic economy has remained very strong. And indeed, most people think will record positive GDP growth even in 2020. So, you know, that I think is a really, really important thing, is the overall success of the economic management of the country. Another lens that investors have looked at Vietnam through is the regional lens, and particularly looking at Southeast Asia. Gareth just mentioned, Ambassador Ward just mentioned that Vietnam's underrepresented in UK investment into ASEAN. You know, this I think is something that's going to change pretty quickly as not only in relation to the UK, but looking around the world, as many companies find Southeast Asia an attractive place to invest, and Vietnam is really a standout location across Southeast Asia now, both due to its handling of the COVID crisis, but also just for other sort of political and economic circumstances that are afflicting some of the other Southeast Asian economies. So I think looking at that regional lens and looking at Vietnam as an entree to Southeast Asia is also driving thinking. And thirdly, and this is perhaps in some ways the most topical driver, it's the global lens and the lens of geopolitics that has really come to the fore in multinational companies when looking at allocating capital and making investments. And you know, this has come from the idea, or if we try to think about this, one way to think of it is that every CEO in the world for the last 20, 30 years has had to come to the boardroom with a China strategy. And over the last 10 years, and certainly the last 2 or 3 years, they've really had to come to the boardroom with a China plus strategy. And Vietnam has just proven to be a very, very attractive partner for multinational companies that are looking to that sort of diversification and risk mitigation and taking the opportunities that Vietnam offers. And you know, the result of that is that we've seen Vietnam becoming a really attractive investment destination. We've seen Vietnam playing an increasing role in global supply chains, and Director General Pai has talked about that, about the industries that are you know, taking off in Vietnam in manufacturing and export. I think the UK in particular can be very proud that most UK companies that are playing in Vietnam are best in class and are contributing to global supply chains, often at the very, very top end of the value chain. So as you just called out, Baroness, to Vice Minister Vung's priority to accelerate or lift Vietnam up the value chain, the UK is playing a really, really important part in that, whether it's in financial services, manufacturing, and all of the support services around it. So yeah, I think through every lens, looking very, very attractive. I'll pick up on one or two of these questions because before I know you go back to the panel, but you mentioned the one about the challenge around visiting factories and you know, getting in and working with Vietnamese partners. I think it is you know, clearly a challenge at the moment with travel restrictions to actually get into Vietnam if you're not here already to visit. But I would say there are enormous ties, soft power ties and cultural and economic ties between Vietnam and the UK that give British companies looking to invest and do business in Vietnam enormous outreach through Vietnamese that are in Vietnam already, or others that are here that are ready and willing to partner and to help connect where connections are difficult at present. So you know, I don't think we have to be put off with that. I would say also Vietnamese are amazing adopters of technology and you know, really at the forefront of using the internet and cyber tech to communicate, talk to each other. So I don't think there's huge barriers or obstacles to actually getting away and building on the sort of success that companies would have had through you know, through visiting Vietnam in the past. And you know, let's hope we're back to face-to-face visits pretty soon.
Thank you, Warwick. That's brilliant. I think we might now move on to some questions and back to Vice Minister Vong. I mean, two things. First of all, perhaps he'd like to comment on getting tourism going. And secondly, we're seeing countries in the region, Singapore, for example, developing digital trade very strongly. Is Vietnam doing anything in the digital space? I have a question about digital sort of tech cities here. And I'd be very interested to know, he's been helping friends, this is an anonymous questionnaire. I've been helping friends in Vietnam for many years, and I'm currently developing technology parks, which is expanding. And I've worked at a number of education groups in Hanoi. Is there an opportunity for technology parks alongside the green science? Vice Minister, over to you. You're on mute. Hello.
Hello. So, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So thank you very much for the question. As Mr. Ambassador, Mr. Gareth Wood just mentioned, we are very delighted that with regard to the tourism for the last years, the tourists coming to Vietnam from the UK has been tripled. So it's very good news for our bilateral cooperation. But unfortunately, this year, because of the pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, so the number of the tourists coming from the UK to Vietnam certainly reduced. So we hope very much that the coronavirus pandemic would be controlled, could be over soon, and so the tourism would come to the normal. And we really hope that with so many attractions in Vietnam, number of the tourists coming from the UK to Vietnam could be dramatically increased in the forthcoming years. With regard to the digital trade, here in Vietnam, we could see there is very big potential for that, especially in the circumstances that the people cannot be travel because of the coronavirus. And in last month, we could see a very huge increase in the the online trade here in Vietnam. And so I could see very big potential for that. And that is also an area of our cooperation in the future. And for that, we are developing appropriate legal framework in order to promote the digital trade here in Vietnam and between Vietnam and other countries. Can you hear me, and can you got my point?
Very much so. Yes, thank you very much, Minister. That's great. I'm going to ask on our final round of questions, because we have to close at 10, I'm going to ask in two areas. I'm going to ask about energy, which has been a big theme. And of course, green energy, there's going to be a big launch of green energy in the UK by our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, at 11:30 today. So I think the green energy agenda will be one for the future. But I have two questions on green energy. One, which perhaps the Director General will answer. Several speakers have referred to the importance of renewable energy. Could they give some details of which areas have priority? So is it solar, is it wind, is it biomass or biogas? And another question is tidal energy being considered? I hear you're a very big wind country, which has its downsides. Is tidal also strong? So that's the energy question. And then the second question is from Catherine Clark from the Prudential. She's been looking at innovation in financial technology and wondered if there's more that could be done. What are the priorities in terms of technology and financial and health technology in particular? Perhaps I could first go to the Director General, and then perhaps back to the Minister, and then to Warwick, and then to Gareth. And perhaps you could add any final thoughts when you speak, so that we make sure we get those before we close. So thank you. Director General Tai first.
Sorry, Baroness, we have an expert in energy, which is my Vice Minister.
So, well, he should answer the questions then. So
yes,
over
so
to him.
please.
I'm so sorry.
With your kind permission, may I
yes, yes, let's go to the Minister. Minister Wong.
So you have so many questions, so I try to answer the easiest question, and more difficult I would left to Mr. Thai and Mr. Garrett, our ambassador.
Fine.
So we are very pleased that as Mr. Garrett just mentioned, with the key features of our cooperation in the forthcoming years is the energy, and more particularly the wind energy, where the British companies have very big and very great advantage in that. And actually here in Vietnam, you may know that we are in a period of transition from a conventional energy system to a more clean energy system, which mostly based on the clean energy, namely the solar and wind power. Here in Vietnam, we have very big potential for the wind and solar power. It is estimated that the technical potential of the wind power is more than 450 gigawatt, and the same potential of the solar. And so, we're very optimistic about the development of the renewable energy for the sake of the country economy, and that in that area we would see very great potential for the cooperation between the two countries, since we know that the UK companies has very big advantage, very large knowledge and experience in development of the power system in general and renewable energy in particular. And by the way, a few days ago, when Mr. Raab, Dominic Raab, your minister, come over to Vietnam, and our Prime Minister had a very constructive meeting with the potential developers for a very big wind farm, offshore wind farm here in Vietnam. And we are very optimistic that the project would be implemented with the very essential participation of the UK developers for that. And that would be, I would say that it would be one of the first projects of our cooperation in the energy sector, especially in the renewable energy areas.
Thank
you.
So that's great news. I agree. Shall we move on to Warwick? And Warwick, if you were able to pick up and answer the question on financial innovation, that would be great. And I saw there was also a question from Stuart Watson about whether there's any aerospace industry in Vietnam. You might like to pick that up as well with any closing remarks.
Sure, absolutely. I think on the FTech area or financial tech area, there's a lot of activity in the financial services space, in particular, both from banks and some of the alternatives like the consumer finance companies and insurance companies and so on. So it is quite an exciting area, and there are some domestic FTech companies emerging that are becoming quite relevant as well and are attracting capital from venture capitalists and investors. So I think there's a nice ecosystem developing in this area that a number of the that will potentially lead to some of the local players leaping ahead of the international players because of speed of adoption and rapid localization of FTech solutions and so on. So I think it's a really interesting area, one which is really dynamic in Vietnam, also regionally, but we haven't seen as much regional penetration as we've seen the emergence of domestic players in the FTech space. And as I said earlier, huge willingness and uptake from the Vietnamese population. Everybody here is 23, which means they're all ready and willing to jump onto cyber solutions for any problem that they might have. So that's a really exciting and dynamic area as well. I will defer to the experts, the Vice Minister, on the energy question. I think, as Gareth said earlier, the wind sector is really exciting, as is the solar sector, and Vietnam is, is keen and anxious to reduce its reliance on carbon energy, and indeed we're going to see, and we are already seeing, manufacturers in Vietnam committing to producing things with clean energy in order to maintain access to global markets. So that, it's a very live topic here. The government's not falling behind on it. Companies are ahead on it. Probably it's an area where multinational companies are ahead of local companies in terms of adoption, because of the sort of awareness, if you like, of trends in Europe, US, UK, and so on. But I think there'll be quick catch up there with the encouragement of the government as well.
Okay, Warwick, and I think, Gareth, it's the last words from the panel are really to you, and the one or two questions unanswered, which with your help, we'll try and come back to those concerned. But over to you, please. Gareth, is he still there? Hello, yes. Can you hear? Yeah.
I'm ready now, sorry. We had a microphone issue.
I mean, any final thoughts on any of the questions?
Yes. So, first of all, a couple of thoughts on digital and fintech. Maybe we'll hear more in the next session, because I know we have rep from Nashtec involved. But I think it's really exciting that you have British companies delivering digital solutions through using expertise within Vietnam, like Nashtec, and at the same time, you have Vietnamese companies delivering digital solutions in the UK, like FPT. And FPT is, I think, the biggest digital company in Vietnam, and they've just opened an office in the UK in order to be closer to some of their UK clients. So this is beginning to be a substantive area, and as the regulation improves, I think I'm correct in saying that the State Bank of Vietnam has just approved new regulations to allow a bank account to be set up without a physical signature. You can do it online. And we've been working with the State Bank of Vietnam to talk to them about the regulatory sandbox approach that the Bank of England uses to allow regulation to keep up with the speed of innovation, because traditional government regulation is too slow to support fintech, but it needs a different approach. So I think there's huge potential there. On energy, I'll just say that we're trying to walk the walk. So last week, the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, was transported around in a very nice, our very nice Jaguar flag car, but it's a 5-litre petrol engine. And yesterday, that car was let go, and we have just got a Jaguar I-Pace arriving, and we're putting solar panels on top of the residence. So that's our small signal, but the much bigger signal, I think Warwick pointed to it, is the major multilateral multinational investors in Vietnam. They need to meet the expectations of their supply chains and their customers by having green energy. And they want energy from the rooftops and from the wind. They don't want energy from conventional coal-based sources. So that's driving a lot of the investment into Vietnam. I'll finish on that. Thank you, Lucy.
Stop you on that very positive note, because we must wind up. And I'd like to thank everybody. We've looked back 10 years. That has been a success. We can look forward 10 years to new areas of cooperation, including in health and energy, and of course, under the aegis of hopefully a new trade agreement. Thank you very much to all of the speakers, to Vice Minister Vong, great to see you again, to Ambassador Anne, ditto, to Gareth Ward, our ambassador, to Director General Tai, and to Warwick Klein, who gave us a business perspective. I hope the rest of your day goes very well. I'd like to thank Mr. Kwon, the Commercial Counsel at the Vietnamese Embassy in London, who's done so much to make this day a success. And of course, my own UK-ABC team. Thank you very much indeed to you all. That ends this morning's seminar.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Baronet Neverov, and our distinguished guest speaker and business enterprise for organizing and participating in this very important event. Hope to see you very soon in the near future. Thank you. Thank you.